sundial in the world. The car stopped as we became stuck in a football match traffic jam, and I watched a red and white Manchester United scarf fluttering out of the window of the car beside me, flapping in the rain which started to plummet down, rapidly making the colours fade, as if they were trickling out of the scarf, not really a permanent part of the scarf, but liable to be lost in the downpour, as if the whole world might melt away at any moment. Dad's voice tugged at me suddenly. "Roshni, are you still there? Rosh, have you vanished?" he teased. A long time later, after waiting in the traffic jam until day turned into darkness, we arrived at our grandmother Mammy's house, which curved around the corner of Stretford, near to the Lancashire cricket ground and not far from the football stadium. Mammy lived above the corner shop, which she worked in every day. A corner shop with a small, wild, overgrown garden behind it, and a deep cellar full of ghosts and wine bottles beneath it, and a patch of sky often thundering and crying above it. The shop shared its patch of pavement with a chippy, a newsagent, and an old man who sat on the bench all day, deep in a perpetual monologue. The shop was stacked thick with tins of food, sacks of potatoes that I often helped to weigh out into smaller bags, and best of all, sweets. Our necks were forever draped with love heart necklaces with slogans like "Bite me," "Love you," "You are sweet." Our heads exploded with the space crackle sweets which fizzed as soon as they touched the tongue. I devoured the sweetness as if it might counteract the bitterness which had begun to seep into our lives like a poison. The living room directly above the shop had a thick, woolly, chocolate-brown carpet covering the whole room, thick like the fur of an animal, so that bits of food, penny pieces, spiders were forever being lost in there. Mummy doesn't know anything about what has happened. She doesn't know that Mum has vanished into the hungry air of Manchester. I don't know whether or not to tell her, because Dad said it was a secret that must never be told. Never, he said. Don't breathe a word. So many things that happened to us we were sworn to secrecy about. So many things were sealed away, separated from the external narrative. Don't breathe a word. Ashish the astrologer is visiting from Jaipur, India, and we gather in the lounge above the shop, which is now shut for the evening. Ashish has known Dad for almost half of their lives. Mammy is draped in a white sari, with the jumper pouring slowly, painfully, thread by thread from her fingers, until she suddenly gives up and lays the half-made sweater and the knitting needles to one side and sinks back into herself. The gas fire is lit and roaring, and the television flickers away furiously in the corner of the room. Mammy's glittering eyes fixed on it, laughing at the sad bits of EastEnders, since she doesn't understand much English. I watch the TV through watching Mammy's eyes, wondering where Mum is, where Mum is, where Mum is. The phrase thuds in my heartbeat: where is Mum, where is Mum, where is Mum? Soon enough, though, it becomes part and parcel of myself. It becomes the ghost making my heart tip. Right, everybody, enough of gazing at the box, the astrologer announces, clapping his hands together, his white moustache twitching against his brown face. Let's gaze at the stars. I peer through the window but can't see any stars lurking in the muggy black sky. There is a sliver of a moon, but not so much of it that you can see its full face. Dr. Ashish Kumar teaches astronomy in Jaipur, as well as working as an astrologer selling readings to punters. The largest sundial in the world sits in Jaipur, a city in India known as the Pink City due to the huge buildings built out of pink stone or painted pink, says Ashish. The sundial is larger than each of you, larger than this house, and is a thing of great beauty. It has been measuring time for hundreds of years. Ashish tells us how he still visits sundials every single morning at sunrise when he is in India, watching the changing shapes of the shadows on the earth, potential lives and paths stretching themselves out or shrinking and shrivelling up. He translates those patterns of light and dark into astrological readings, which he gives to his clients who pay him to see their lives mapped out before them, feeling comforted that they can at least see a shape in the great nothingness, which they can then fill in, like number colouring for those fearful of the future. The lines of the palm have already settled, you know, he says to Sonny, even on a little girl like you, even on a baby still in the womb. Sonny stretches out her arm to him fearfully, part of her hand covered in ink smudges. I wonder if that is the part showing the path to where Mum is, when she'll be coming back. Her heartline? Let's see, when were you born? July, says my sister. No, precise times, child. We need to know the exact precise time. 24th of July, she breathes, proud that she has remembered the date which she has always been forgetting. An alarm child, we need to know the exact second the clock struck, to be able to trace the way the sun was falling, what planets were colliding, exactly where the light and darkness was, and where the light and darkness will be. How will we know that unless we don't have that time at our fingertips? Prem? Don't worry, Sonny, your dad will know. Prem? He beckons to Dad, who is sitting with his new girlfriend, Hannah, on the sofa. I can see their fingers touching, their eyes deep into each other. Mammy seems totally oblivious to it, though, as if she's purposely switched off her sight to them, blocking out the scene as easily as switching off a television. Prem, I need your help. We need this child's birth details. I'm plotting her astrological chart. Dad removes his head from Juana's shoulders and looks over to hers. What time was she born? Asks the Shishi astrologer. Well, let's see, says Dad. Sometimes in the morning, I think. Or was that Roshni? What time in the morning, Prem? Just let me think. There was a long pause in which Ashish holds his breath. Juana laughs. Hey, Prem, just tell me the truth. You weren't even there, she giggles. Let me guess where you were, playing cricket? Dad chuckles too. No, Tashanti had gallstones at the time. She was so fat, you see. She starts laughing, and Juana is laughing too, their laughter falling into each other. No wonder she had gallstones when she was fat as a balloon, stuffing herself with so much food all the time, eating and making herself sick, and eating again. Crazy woman she was. Why was he talking about my mum in the past tense? And was it really her he was talking about? She wasn't fat at all, the mum I knew. And what were gallstones? I imagine a flock of gulls with precious stones in their beaks, delivering them to Mum. I wonder if she ate them all by accident, and it is that which made her fat and heavy. Anyway, she had gallstones, so was in hospital for weeks, continues Dad. Roshni might never have been born, as it was a touch and go for much of the time. We didn't know if she'd pull through. The stones were shifting the baby out of place. So anyway, I couldn't be there all the time, not all the time. Someone had to work and make money. It doesn't make itself, not money, not time, but you have some of the story. Ashish the astrologer shakes his head, looking very perplexed. You should know, Prem, what a travesty that is in India, not to know the exact time of your child's birth. How is she ever going to be able to plan her life now, he asks, voice rising to near hysteria. Hurry Ram, how is she going to be able to live? Look, I've told you what I know of the story, says Dad. You must be able to give us something to go on from that. Next, it is time for me to have my palm read, and I tell Ashish the astrologer my birth date as we gaze down at my palm. It is the first time I have ever inspected my palm in such detail, and I am shocked to see such an intricacy of paths overlapping and colliding and forking out and crisscrossing. Along with the little lines and the great swerving lines, there are concentric circles like the bark of a tree and the veins of a leaf. Could the course of my whole life really lie in these strange etchings? Let's see. Oh, the lifeline starts off very, very strong, but then there is a great rupture in it just here. He crinkles up his brow, tutting. Some accident or misfortune. Well, let's see, what else? You know you're on the cusp of birth signs, fire and water. Whatever you do, just be careful not to burn yourself out. Balance the water and the fire. How could a person burn themselves out? I was not allowed to play with fire, and the only water I knew was from the tap. If there is any way to delay that great rupture, listen carefully to the story your grandmother is telling you. Learn from the lessons of the Ramayana, he says, holding up a copy of the book, which has been lying on the sofa's edge. Think of the golden deer that tempted Sita away from the place of safety and into the trap of the monster. If there is something that looks nice, leaping like a golden deer, tempting you away, resist temptation. Remember that a lot of things in life are illusions that only seem to look like reality. The golden deer? I did remember the golden deer in the Ramayana story, but I couldn't imagine a golden deer bounding through the streets of Manchester. Also, count to 100 before making an important decision, he continued. Hold your breath deeply and pause and think. Remember to think and remember to remember. Your memories are very important. You should write down the important memories and store them carefully. The creature on this earth who has the longest memory is the elephant. In Jaipur, where I come from, there are many, many great elephants. I imagine a real live elephant strolling down the streets amidst the Manchester United football traffic and swishing his huge trunk, tapping on the door of the corner shop with his trunk and sitting down to have his great palm read, but it would have to be the sole of one of his feet instead. What I really want to ask is if he can predict anything about my unpredictable mother. Can you tell me if the Sundial knows when Mum will be coming back and how she is? I asked Ashish the astrologer. Is she still hurting? Could the sundial or the palm of the hand measure human pain and when it might stop? And the mention of Mum, Dad starts from the sofa and in a nervous voice tries to drown out mine. And one more story you should know about is elephants, pipes up Dad, is the story of the blind man and the elephant. The blindfolded man each touched a different part of the elephant and reported a very different creature. Some touched its trunk and described it as thick and firm. Some touched its tail and described how it switched. Truth comes in different shapes and sizes and textures, depending on where you're standing. Hello, then, I'm trying to read this girl's palm. Enough of your stories. Next, he examined my brother's palm, but for each of us, he ran against the same lineless, blank wall in his calculations. The time of our births were all unknown. Now, Prem, surely you know when you yourself were born. Hey, Shanti, he calls to Mummy, whose eyes have glazed over as she painfully resumes trying to knit a jumper with her arthritic fingers. When was this rascal born? I bet your memory is better than his. In the end, our astrological charts were left unmapped. Instead of being guided by the light and shadow cast by the great sundial of Jaipur, there was just a huge mist. There was just empty, unmapped, blank and patternless space. Dad had a pattern as firm as Mummy's knitting needle, and Mummy had a pattern. All they did was colour it in. But with roots reaching into mist, we had nothing to go on, and thereafter began to freefall. That night it was dreams of the sundial that rocked me to sleep. Sleep finally came, and with it feverish dreams, haunted with absences, pocked with holes, the young mind starting its desperate search for something to fill in the gaps. There was a sense of soaring freedom too, that the future might be mine to make. Thank you. And now we're going